let's talk a little bit more about Google Translate and DeepL and the differences between them. So in my previous video, I may have made the impression, or I may have given the impression, that Google Translate has a lot of flaws, whereas DeepL is much superior. And while I think that in many ways it is superior, the differences aren't that huge. The fact is that Google Translate does have certain shortcomings, like the fact that it omits certain words or phrases from the translation, which actually modify the meaning. Also, the fact that DeepL actually does something about punctuation. It seems to modify the punctuation to match the rules of the target language. It also seems to cope better with the context of preceding sentences in the text. However, if you're working on translations, it's a good idea to keep trying both tools to see what the differences are, what are the shortcomings and the advantages of each one. At this point, it seems that in most areas, DeepL seems to do a slightly better job. But of course, this is changing constantly as these tools get developed. So today I'm going to copy some sentences again. So just a few sentences which should highlight some interesting points and show us some more shortcomings or perhaps advantages of each tool. There is one big advantage of Google which I forgot to mention, and that's the fact that it supports a lot of languages. So if you look here, it supports basically all the major languages. Right, so we've got Ukrainian here, whereas DeepL only supports a handful of languages. So in a way, it's got a slightly easier job because of that. And actually, we're quite lucky that Polish is here, because you can see that these are really major, popular languages on this list mostly. Right, so it's actually quite amazing that Polish has been included here. Yes, so of course, if you want to translate using any other language, you just have to use Google. So these are the sentences I'm going to copy into each tool. So you can see that they are pretty short sentences, and they are individual sentences without the context of a whole paragraph of a previous sentence. So we'll just focus on how the two tools deal with these short sentences. You don't talk in class. You don't talk in class, so the same translation. So of course we have this impersonal form in Polish, but in English, in this context, in informal language, you would just use you. So this is the generic informal you. We met at a conference in Prague. We met at a conference in Prague. No problems here. And actually, I feel tempted to modify this sentence. let's remove the place. Okay, so of course here we have less context. Still, the conference could be a specific event that both speakers know about. Okay, so the assumption is that, again, that it's a specific conference. Right, so I'm trying to force these translators to use present perfect. Well, DeepL gives those alternatives here. We've met before. Let's move on. I'm not going for a walk, just a meeting. No difference. Do not sit in the sun for too long. Do not sit or don't sit in the sun too long. So the DeepL version is more informal. Don't and without the preposition. So this translation is not really correct. So the wrong tense is used here. However, DeepL does a good job here. Right, so actually DeepL makes a mistake here. Right, obviously na Wielkanoc can be translated as for Easter, but in a different context, especially when we talk about the future. What have you prepared for Easter? But the tense used here is a little more appropriate than the past continuous used here, which doesn't mean that this is an error, because it depends on the context. You could use past continuous, but in general, if you just wanted to express the fact that it snowed, you would say it snowed. There's no reason to use the past continuous. I would like to have it in writing. I'd like to have that in writing. You can see that DeepL tends to be a little more informal. Of course, the use of it or that all depends on the context. You could also have this. What do you see in this tree? What do you see in that tree? So again, the difference is in the demonstrative. but the correct preposition is used here. However, in this sentence, you would probably expect on. There are several apples on the tree. It's a slightly different situation. However, DeepL doesn't seem to see that. So, at the birthday, everyone was dressed up as clowns. So this is incorrect. Because obviously na urodzinach. And I'm actually surprised because na urodzinach can only refer to, well, at least 95% of the cases. If you say na urodzinach, you mean the birthday party, don't you? What other context could there be? Right? So, on their birthdays, they were all dressed up as clowns. Right, so neither tool does a good job here. Let's try to modify this sentence. So again, not ideal. Auntie's birthday party. Okay, but this alternative is probably better, because this sentence is missing the preposition. Now, where is that alternative? At my aunt's birthday party. Right? So you can see, even with relatively simple sentences and phrases, you will find some errors and some problems in each tool. Oops. Let's first paste here. Oh, I copied the whole thing. He's crazy about her. Okay, same here. Don't open the door for anything. Right, I'm not 100% sure about this phrase. Right, so the definition here, of course, it's always negative, not for anything. Informal, definitely not. I wouldn't give it up for anything. Right, so in this context, this would be an accurate translation of za nic. Don't open the door for anything. Right, if you just substituted this with definitely not, it wouldn't quite work. Well, you could say definitely don't open the door. So perhaps it's okay. I'm really not sure. We wrote a chemistry test yesterday. And the same translation here. I came by car. Right, I came by car, I came in the car, I came in a car, depending on the context. Przyjechałem samochodem sąsiada. Right, and we can see a problem here. By a neighbor's car. So of course we don't use by with a possessive or any other modifier. By car refers to the way you travel. By car, by bus, and so on. So you can't say by somebody's car, or by my car, or anything like that. Or by the car. I came in my neighbor's car, so that's a correct translation. Of course, you've got one incorrect alternative here, but the main translation is okay. Please put it in the fridge. And the same translation here. Of course, in reality, you would put please at the end in such a sentence, unless you wanted to give some emphasis to this word. Please put it in the fridge. But normally, if it's just a simple request, you would say, put it in the fridge, please, or put this in the fridge, please. I will start today's lecture with a joke. I'll start today's lecture with a joke. DeepL prefers contractions. So now we're modifying this sentence a little bit. I will start today's lecture by telling a joke. By telling a joke. So both translations are okay. And this is an interesting example. Właściwie to on rzucił piłkę w nią, a nie do niej. Actually, he threw the ball at her, not at her. So of course, the result is nonsensical. Right, and DeepL has the same problem. So you can see that neither translator can cope with this sentence. Because, of course, the difference between w nią and do niej is, well, the difference is obvious, I think, but in English you would say he threw the ball at her, not to her. Right? So you can throw a ball to somebody if you want them to catch it, or you throw the ball or something else at somebody when you want to hit them with that thing.